The point is it's suppressed immune systems. Let's go to this COVID fear-mongering nonsense here. Who are the people who are actually dying? First, we don't really know because there is a political and a economic interest to brand everyone as COVID-19. And the WHO created 2 codes. Remember, the WHO creates the diagnostic codes, which, by the way, they charge for. It's a very interesting business model they have. So they created 2 codes for COVID-19, as I understand. They may have created 3, but it's definitely 2. One was you were actually labeled as having COVID-19 through a test. Well, what was that test? It's a PCR test, polymerase chain reaction. Well, what does that mean? That means they're looking for a piece of the nucleotide in your body, and then they magnify it and try to match it to one of the coronavirus nucleotides. By the way, coronavirus is one of the most common viruses. We all probably have pieces of it, okay? And they're not even looking for the entire sequence of the COVID-19. It's any corona, actually. It's a nucleotide sequence, which doesn't necessarily have to be that, okay? Because furthermore, the PCR tests are highly, Carrie Mullis, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, who also supported Duisberg, in chemistry. Amazing scientist. Carrie said the PCR test isn't even quantitative, it's qualitative. It's a qualitative test. It's not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's a guesstimate that's made. That's one code that the WHO has. The second code they had as well is sort of looks like COVID. So when people are coming to these hospitals and they're branding them into one of those 2 codes, in fact, I was privy to a letter that the CDC sent to hospital administrators. A very good friend of mine who's a pediatrician shared. The letter basically is incentivizing hospital administrators to conflate one and the other. That's what's going on. I dare ask any one of these people, including Cuomo, to put all of this data in the cloud so I and other professionals can review it. And you don't have to put the names. You can follow HIPAA guidelines. Give the pre-existing conditions of these people. We had just a very close friend of ours who was a big smoker, friend of ours' husband, big smoker, always would get pneumonia, had multiple incidents of going to the hospital and getting intubated. Well, he was just COVID-19. Let's say, God forbid, something happens to him. What are they going to brand him as? COVID-19 death? Or forget the fact that he ate horribly, was 40, 50 pounds overweight, was a smoker. That'll be forgotten. So that's what people need to understand. We have created, remember, because of big hospitals, because of the big academia, because of big pharma, these 3 people have colluded in a beautiful way to create this fear mongering. There's money dangling, and you have to understand that the ventilator companies, remember I talked about the GPOs? Every hospital supply goes through a group purchasing organization. The hospital administrators get a kickback. I've spoken to, when we launched this petition, Fire Fauci, nearly 3,000 medical doctors have signed that. This is not because MDs are realizing before they thought they were top of the food chain. They're realizing, you know what? This COVID-19 quote unquote crisis has diminished them to become frontline medical workers who get treated like crap, or they're realizing they're basically part of the machine. They're really not any better than the other hospital line nurses who they used to actually step on. So that's a phenomenon that's occurred. But the bottom line is no one knows what the numerator is. And furthermore, the denominator is probably massive, okay? It's, this is a virus. There's many viruses that we get. Now we can start talking about bioweaponry, was it created, etc. My point is this, whether it's a bioweapon or not, it comes down to this fundamental issue. What do we do to support the immune system? That's the fundamental question. And how does the immune system work? Forget even foods, I can talk about supplements. Let's talk about something even more powerful. You know what that is? Social interactions. The number one reason, there's been a longevity study done many years ago. The number one reason when they looked at many cultures, they wanted to figure out why people live long. The number one reason, Stefan, was here are the top 3 reasons. And the top 3 did not include food. You know what the number 1 was? Social interactions.
We're social animals. We're dogs, not cats. We need each other desperately. Health is communal activity.
Well, you can even, you can see dogs, you don't give a dog enough. Anyone, you can destroy someone. You can actually destroy someone. By way of example, I was brought up here, but there are sometimes Indians, Indians have this arranged marriage model. It's a very interesting stuff that's not talked about. Indians, after they emigrate here, some of them still want to maintain connection to their culture. They'll go back to India and get back in an arranged marriage. They'll find some woman in a village. Poor woman has a huge social community. Bring her out of that, bring her to the United States. They're married. and the husband goes to work, and she's now stuck in a little suburb with no friends. So many suicides. These people, we just had another close friend of mine. His wife had depression 40 years ago. Very extroverted person, completely well for the last 40 years. She just relapsed into massive depression because she can't go to the Y, she can't play bridge, she's lost all of her connection. There are a set of people who need those social connections. I would argue most of us, and if you don't have that, the research by Stephen Cole, by the way, there's a 1988 landmark study which clearly showed that lack of social isolation would lead to detriment worse than high blood pressure, worse than obesity, and worse than even smoking. You might as well start smoking. But that's been scientifically shown. And then at the molecular systems level, the work of Stephen Cole with humans and macaque monkeys, socially isolating them, at the gene expression level, it's shown that your body will upregulate genes which are inflammatory, and downregulate, which means suppress genes which cause antiviral activity. So think about that. So social isolation leads to viral infection and cancer and a number of other diseases. It's really the old model of some religions had, guilt and shame, right? So you guilt and shame somebody, and that's how you destroy them. So the goal is to guilt and shame people. And part of that guilt and shame, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people with masks, people without masks. Fascinating is we will go to working class neighborhoods in Central Mass. Plumbers, electricians, they don't care about this nonsense because they know it's bullshit. They come out and sign. Where we go to Cambridge, all these educated elites, people wearing ventilators, ski masks, although, it's wild. You see the actual difference with common sense folks who can appreciate what's going on, and really people are the vulnerable elites. As my friend Dick Lindzen used to say when he talks about the climate change, people fall for that. But that's what we've seen here. We've seen the fact that getting back to Fauci, if you truly cared about public health, he's not making one comment. Let's take the really bad people. When I sent the letter to President Trump, I said, one of the groups of those people are the people with serious crisis situation. They're about to go on ventilators, and we know there's only a 10 to 15% chance they're going to survive. Well, what are they doing with those people? Well, here's a person, supposedly COVID, whatever it is, doesn't matter. They're in a crisis situation, which means their lungs are filling up with water, edema, fluid. And so that little alveoli, one of those alveoli, let's say, has fluid in it. It's half filled. And let's just take simple physics, simple Boyle's law. You have a structure which has a certain volume, and now it has less volume. Well, the pressure is going to increase. So now you're putting these ventilators are not just oxygen. They're actually pumping air, pressure. So what are you going to do? So the edema is taking place in the lungs. And what is that? It's caused by the cytokine storm. Your body is in a reflexive, overreactive stage. It's eating away at its own tissues in some sense. And then now you're putting more pressure in. And there's a beautiful paper I shared, which really shows how the high pressure ventilation exacerbates that. So that's why you're basically, one of those doctors was saying that you're basically drowning people in their own fluid. The solution to that has been shown over and over and over again in multiple studies is high dose, therapeutic dose vitamin C. So cheap. It's not $100,000. I don't know how much these ventilators cost, $3,500. It's probably pennies on the dollar. And you don't need an expert. High dose. I told, when I wrote to the president, I said 100 grams over 24 hours. Even if you take a less dose, which is, by the way, in the literature, 10 grams to 15 grams over 6 hours, what do you find? Why is vitamin C powerful? Well, first of all, it eats up reactive oxygen species, which is an antioxidant. It modulates the immune system. There's a chemical called GAPDH, which your overreactive macrophages start putting out. Well, it blocks that. So now you've modulated the immune system. It stops viral replication, and you've supported that. And it inhibits NF-kappa beta, which really causes inflammation. So it's a 4-part thing. And what are you going to lose? Why aren't they doing it? Stefan, I had one of the large newspaper reporters call me. She goes, Shiva, can you tell me why you're recommending IV vitamin C? And I had a long talk. She says, everything you're saying makes so much sense. I take care of my health. I take vitamins. I said, are you going to publish anything I said? She goes, I probably won't be able to because my editor will stop it. And I said, isn't that unfortunate? So you have a situation where none of these people like Fauci care a damn about public health. What he cares about is whether he creates his legacy of winning some medal, whether he does the bidding. Look, he's on the leadership council of the Gates Foundation they created a plan called the Global Vaccine Plan. He's on their leadership council. Okay, so we didn't elect him on that. So this guy is an institutionalized creature who knows how to manipulate people. That's how you survive in academia. I mean, academia is totally about, I'm not talking about science. Academics make it by total manipulation. They spend 90% of their time how to get this graduate student, how to write this grant, how to phrase things. They're the masters of fraud. We need to destroy the scientific establishment. And that destruction will only occur if we recognize that when we fund public research, that data is my data and it's your data. When they do research experiments, it should go right to the cloud. If someone does an experiment on a mice, whatever they do, put it to the cloud. It's my data. I'm pretty smart. There's a billion other people or 100 million other people in this country who are smart. Download that data. So first thing this will affect is, where is all the climate change data? I want to see it. We need to go to citizen science. We need to take the power away from the academics. Because remember, in the Indian caste system, the academics were the Brahmins, the scribes, and that's what we've created. Fauci is really a quote unquote a Brahmin, okay? Who's a scribe who advises the king, in this case, the politician. He's always there, right? Presidents come and go, this guy's always there. They shouldn't allow these guys to be in there this long. In fact, we should eliminate tenure. Tenure should be taken away. Let these guys teach and then go back and work. The third part of this is on the health side. We need to decentralize medicine to the edges. The health can only emerge from the relation between me and the healer, because the body is such a freaking complex system. To mandate medicine top down is a concept of a depersonalized view of the body, whereas modern medicine is realizing one size does not fit all. So when you look at a guy like Fauci, he's practicing everything which is anti-human, anti-medicine. Number one, he's practicing exclusivity. A small cult of people are going to decide. Second thing, he's practicing centralization of authority. A few set of people. Opacity. How are all these decisions being made? You know, the other piece of it is it's all about depersonalization, treating everyone like a lump. And based on that is why we're all locked up. Everyone is being treated the same, when the reality should be we should take the immunocompromised, give them high dose vitamin D, which creates cathelicidins, which are antimicrobial, give them high dosage vitamin A. And but by the way, those two are very few, no side effect solutions. Give them vitamin C. And for the rest of us, let's take around 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D and A. And if you want to take other herbs, great, but we should be out there freaking working. This is total nonsense. And all of this is based on the imposition of fake science by Fauci. And he knows what he's doing. And I think the key is, I'm willing to, let's talk the science. Let's talk molecular systems. Let's talk infectious disease openly in a round table. If Gates wants to show up, who has no knowledge of this, if Hillary Clinton wants to show up, and if Fauci wants to show up, and they can bring all the scientists they want. I'll take them all on. But the bottom line is that they are actively created this fear mongering on a fake science model, on the ignorance of people's understanding of the immune system. So what we're seeing, Stefan, in closing, you know, if we want to sort of summarize this, we're seeing the conversion of big science, big, academia, big pharma at one point, and it's all to make sure that we have mandated medicine, we suppress dissent, and if it means printing through quantitative easing $6 trillion to crash the economy, they're fine with that. That's like, I'm going to make a $6 trillion investment today, which I'll get, if you look at over a 20-year horizon, about what, 7 trillion, 140 trillion over the next 10 years or whatever that is, right? So this is relatively pennies for the global elite. And if people can really understand that we're looking at the consolidation of a corporation, a global elite corporation that spans national boundaries, which is intent on securing their power through a model where all of us are mandated to take a medicine, mandated right into our bloodstream, mandated where if we don't do that, we'll be tracked and not allowed to move. This is one of the most dangerous times we're in. However, the good news is that there's a lot of smart people, common sense people, working people, plumbers, electricians, nurses, engineers, who know something doesn't make sense. And that's why I think we're at a very interesting inflection point in human history with this occurrence. And it's probably a huge opportunity for people to get awakened and smash these people. They need to be obliterated, because what they are doing to humanity is destroying humanity. Because what they're really saying is that I want to make you a machine in the Chinese factory. And China was, China from the elites was their testing ground. And if you think about it, China's being exported. Made in China means made in China. We will consolidate. We will create the Chinese Communist Party version of mandated state medicine, mandated state academia, mandated state media, which will deny. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter that a 14-year-old kid wrote all the code, the inbox, outbox, called it email, has a copyright. Doesn't matter. The first thing they do, and it doesn't matter, my 4 degrees at MIT won't matter, right? Because when you go against them, they will attempt to attack you. And the only way out of this is to go viciously after them, uncompromisingly go after them. And that's the way we're going to win. And we also have to recognize that the establishment is always not the enemy. It's the not so obvious establishment. Those people that they put, like the Bernie Sanders. So all you Bernie Sanders people listening out there, he sold out to Hillary Clinton. And all you people who think Bobby Kennedy is going to fight for your medical freedom, he endorsed Hillary Clinton. He attacks Gates. So people say, oh, Bobby attacks Gates. Well, you know what? He endorsed Hillary Clinton 3 times. There's nothing more to talk about, period. So the way we're going to win is to wake up and realize this movement's going to come bottoms up from working people who speak the truth, and it's going to be bottoms up. It's not going to be top down. Hollywood celebrities, we don't need you. The Kennedys, we don't need you. And it's going to be bottoms up. And when people get this, we're going to have a revolution like that. I'm telling you, if you look at history, and it won't have to even be violent, it'll be an awakening that says, wait a minute, this is my body. I'm going to decide what goes into my body. No one owns it. And you know what? The sun is an amazing vehicle. It produces vitamin D. It produces cathelicidins. And you know what? Fresh vegetables without pesticides are what I need. Clean air, clean water, clean food. Meanwhile, in the United States, we have a D+ in infrastructure. Massachusetts, the home to MIT, the home to Harvard, the home to all the elites. You know what they got by the American Society of Civil Engineers for infrastructure? An F-. 125 points out of 350. The third worst infrastructure, which means crumbling bridges, crumbling roads, crumbling water systems. Who the hell are these people like Elizabeth Warren, all these academic people? They have nothing. They should shut the hell up and talk about public health. You have no credibility, nothing. So we need to understand that we need to stop paying so much respect to these people. They've lost all of our respect. F-. in infrastructure, Massachusetts. And Massachusetts got a D++ in the worst corruption. The 10th most corrupt state, the 3rd most breaking infrastructure. And if you look at the history of infectious diseases, if we really want to talk about infectious diseases, you know how they've been solved? Not through vaccines or medical interventions, through infrastructure. Go back to the 1900s. 40 out of 100,000 people had infectious diseases, okay? It dropped down before the polio and measles vaccine to 1/2 out of 100,000. How did that occur? Vitamin A, nutrition, sanitation, refrigeration, elimination of child labor. And how did we get that? Well, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a massive true working class movement, militant movements, and people said, hell no. And they knew that the bourgeois in this country, like the Franklin Delano Roosevelts, were part of the global elite. They're not going to give it to them. They went to the streets. They fought. That's how we got it. And after that, we had the Red Scare. All of those, organic workers were made to be communists, right? So they branded everyone as communist. That was part of this. That was part of the recognition that you don't want indigenous popular movements coming up. Populism. You had to brand them as something, Nazis or communists or whatever. But we need to understand that infectious diseases, the plumber and the sanitation worker did more for infectious diseases than any pharmacist or doctor. That's what actually happened. Now, if they truly care about infectious diseases, let's start by talking about how much pollution that's in the atmosphere and how much the Paris Accords allows China to pollute. Paris Accords allows China to go from 11 billion metric tons of carbon to 22 billion. That's why even the Chinese in China were protesting out on the streets, risking their lives. And let's talk about clean water, clean air. We allow companies like Monsanto, which now is a part of Bayer, who have polluted, destroyed the topsoil of this country, have enslaved many, many farmers. But they don't want to talk about that, the 70% of lawyer lobbyists, because they're part of the problem. They do not want to talk about clean air, clean water, clean food. They don't want to talk about the 30% obesity. They don't want to talk about the 800, 700,000 people die of heart disease and so on. They don't want to talk about the 1.9 million hospitalizations that occur every year from pharmaceutical drug adverse reactions. I say we shut down everything and solve that. And during that shutdown, let's start doing farms. Let's shut down Monsanto if we cared about public health. But that shutdown is not what I see. What I see is a shutdown to destroy the American worker, to seize people's assets and properties, and to basically destroy this economy on behalf of Bill Gates, Hillary Clinton, deep state, the WHO, the Chinese Communist Party, to basically seize power of not only the American worker, but the everyday people. So we become a factory. We become automatons in a large factory, which is what China has done, and we lose our humanity. This is about freedom or slavery. This is not just about a freaking vaccine or a virus. This is about an important point in human history. And this has occurred over and over again, as we discussed. But I think we have an enormous opportunity, actually, to rise up and to reclaim our destiny as human beings. ShivaForSenate.com. If you support the campaign, I've actually created a book and a tool that people can actually understand how their body is a system. It's a very powerful educational tool. And in this time of economic distress, if you can't donate to get it, write to me at vashiva@vashiva.com. And we are also giving away scholarships. And anyone in Massachusetts that's listening, or people you know in Massachusetts, tell them to go to Shiva for Senate, scroll down and have them click a button where we will mail you a nomination ballot so you can sign it and get it in so we can get on the ballot. Everyone should do that. We need to win. This is not about winning a Senate election. This is about a victory in the center of the deep state that will be such a massive defeat to them. Just my getting on the ballot will be a significant defeat. Winning the Republican nomination will be a second defeat, and becoming the next U.S. Senator will be a massive defeat. So that's the journey that we're on.